I'd like to welcome all members to the meeting and just remind people that members at this meeting will be recorded. Before I start, I have a couple of matters I would want to bring to the Council's attention. Members may be aware we will be implementing the recently agreed pay award before Christmas. Staff will receive the causally agreed 1% increase in their December salary backdated to 1st April this year. This is part of a 2-year deal, and the further 1% will be applied from April next year. Obviously, this doesn't include teaching staff whose pay is negotiated separately. The agreement links the payments to the national living wage. Those whose salary does not reach the hourly rate determined by the Living Wage Foundation will receive a further increase to make sure the salary levels reaches that. The 2-year deal is also linked to this living wage. An estimated 1,300 staff in Dumfries and Galloway received the living wage following the application of the £7.50 rate. On the 4th of November, the Living Wage Foundation announced that the recommended level for the living wage in the UK outside London from the 1st of April 2014 would rise to £7.65 per hour, so the Council will be applying this increase. I think this is an important step towards tackling with our region's shameful record as the lowest paid in Scotland, and the administration will be looking carefully at how we roll out the living wage beyond the Council as part of our draft budget. Over the past few weeks, I've been visiting staff and employees in their workplace and have been heartened by the commitment and dedication they have. We recently had an HMIE inspection report on the Dumfries Academy learning community and have asked for a short presentation on the work of CLD in this area to be given to full Council today. The outcome of this report is reported at item 9 on the agenda. On my visits to workplaces, one of the most pleasing aspects has been learning about the many achievements of staff, and I'd like to highlight some of these today. Vary Copeland, who is the Principal Officer, Customer Service Strategy in Community and Customer Services, has recently been awarded the accolade of Customer Services Professional Champion of the Year 2013. Vary received the award at the recent Society of Personal Directors Scotland Conference. Claire Edmondson in Stranraer recently won the Social Worker Student of the Year Award for Student Social Worker of the Year, and Alison Johnson McLaughlin, Social Worker in Dumfries, was the runner-up. This is a national award for social work trainees in Scotland. Claire was also present last Tuesday at the annual SWS Awards ceremony, along with Shona Simpson, Caroline Kane, Rachel Ambler and Tracy McKinstry, and was recognised for graduating with the BA in Social Work as part of her very successful Grow Your Own scheme. I'm also pleased to let members know that young leaders, the Oasis events team for Youth Beats and World of Wonka all won the Newcastle Building Society Young Persons Project of the Year Award last week. The panel of judges could not choose between them, therefore awarded the prize entitled to them all. This is particularly special as the groups were nominated by individual young people and not staff. The Dumfries and Galloway Special Olympics team was awarded the Sir Bobby Robson Foundation Award by Newcastle Building Society last week, and the team has also been nominated for a DG Life People of the Year Award along with Annandale and Eskdale Disability Sport. And last, but by no means least, Newington Primary School in Annan is in the top 3 for the School Sport Award in the Scottish Sports Awards, supported by Sports Scotland and the Sunday Mail, for the school that does the most to develop the young sporting talent of Scotland. All of these groups have been supported by Community Customer Services, Leisure and Sports staff, and I'm sure members will agree it highlights the positive work we do as a council in this area. There is one procedural issue which I would want to raise, in that there is an item on agenda number 8, which was a presentation by young people. I have been asked to defer this item to a future meeting of the Council, so the item has therefore been withdrawn from today's agenda. Moving on to the agenda, could I have the Sederunt apologies, please?
Thank you, Leader. I have 5 apologies from members this morning: Councillor Dempster, Councillor Dykes, Councillor Geddes, Councillor Tuckfield and Councillor Stitt. Otherwise all present and correct.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest?
Thanks, Leader. Item 11, I actually get a very small local government pension. So, but I don't think I'll take proper officer advice. I don't have to leave the meeting.
Okay, I noticed you emphasised the very small. Andrew?
Just seeking governance advice. We have now had for many a month voting buttons in front of us. When do you anticipate that we'll be permitted to use such extreme technology?
Sorry, we're on declarations of interest. Okay. Jim?
Much the same as Councillor Ferguson, although mine is probably a slight bit larger. I have a pension from the council as well.
Can compare notes later. Yeah. Thanks. Any other declarations of interest? Yep. Ted?
Similar to Councillor Ferguson, but much smaller than his.
Okay. Right, can we move on to the minutes for approval? Minutes of the meeting of the 29th of August, 2013 for approval.
Happy to move.
Second.
Okay. The minute of meeting for the 20th of September 2013.
I move.
Second.
Minute of the meeting of the 25th of September 2013.
Happy to move.
Second.
Minute of the meeting of the 1st of October 2013. I'll move them.
Second.
I had it the other way about, but anyway. Minute of the meeting of the 11th of October 2013. I'll move them.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Right, item 8 has been withdrawn, so we'll move on to item 9, which is a Dumfries Academy Learning Community Inspection Evidence of Impact report by Head of Improvement Engagement and Community Services. This report summarises the excellent work carried out by those council services and partners involved in working with individuals and communities to make positive changes in their lives and in their communities through learning. Education Scotland has found our work to have major strengths when benchmarked against the rest of Scotland. And indeed, some of the projects, like Youth Beats and World of Wonka, they have found it to be outstanding and sector leading. Their words, not mine. This the only area committee were so impressed with the findings of this inspection that they asked for an opportunity to hear directly from the young people, learners and volunteers who benefit from this type of provision. What those individuals had to say about the impact that services our council and partners have had on was so impressive that I believe it is appropriate for all members of this council to have the opportunity to hear from them, and I welcome them here this morning. The names that will be speaking are Malcolm Campbell, who's adult learner, CLD service, Mary Halliday, Building Health and Communities, NHS, Dumfries and Galloway, Ralph Hall, Young Person Oasis Youth Centre, CLD, Heather Hall, Volunteer Director, Inspired Community Enterprise Trust, The Hub, and Louise Hill, Young Person and Young Leader, CLD Service. Kirsty, do you want to?
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity this morning. I have with us, as the Chair has outlined, a range of learners who are representative of those that the inspection team met when they were in the Dumfries Academy Learning Community, and I'll hand over to our first speaker this morning, Malcolm Campbell, who inspectors met to ask about the impact of learning services provided for adults.
Thank you. It's an honour to be welcomed here by the majority, if not all the councillors today, to put forward my experience in adult learning. All through my life, for schooling, I had reading and writing difficulties, and it got, when I had my first lot of children, it was a wee bit easier because my first wife, she catered for their needs until she died. Then I got another wife who I'm no longer with. But I had to bring up them children, and I found it very difficult doing their homework. They were coming to me with things I couldn't help them with, and it was just trivia things. You're talking primary stuff, and it was really embarrassing. All my life, I hid behind a curtain. People didn't, some of my friends didn't even know I had reading and writing difficulties. So I plucked up the courage, because the kids were into computing and I didn't even have a clue how to switch them on. So I went along, and the tutors there, they could identify that I was having some problems as well, and I opened up and it all carried on from there. So I got SQAs in computing, started my ACDL. There's 7 modules, I've passed 5 up to now. I'm involved with the community, something that I probably wouldn't have done before. I'm in the community centre committee at Including. I'm on the committee with the supporters club at Queen of the South. I'm also got the North West Learners Forum. I'm part of that when I can. I'm back into employment. So everything has been on the plus. And for years I was embarrassed, and that embarrassment, it was crazy when I think about it now, because the help was there. The help was there. And I think with a lot of adults, that is their problem. It's embarrassment. They didn't want to come forward. And I know for a fact there is a lot of people out there in the same boat. So I'm just grateful for the facilities I had and the chance I was given, the second chance. And that's, I'd just like to thank you very much. Thank you. No problem.
Mary, our next volunteer, supports Building Healthy Communities, a team within NHS Dumfries and Galloway that takes a community development approach to reducing health inequalities across all 4 areas of our region.
I'm Mary Halliday, and my problem started after I retired. I thought I was going to be lying on the beach somewhere. Retirement is supposed to be enjoyment. Did lie on the beach for 2 or 3 weeks, right enough. But then I had a sore back, and when I was 64, I suffered a massive heart attack, and they called it a silent heart attack with no symptoms, so I didn't know I had a heart attack. And I went for my ECG, which was what I was to have, and again, everything was fine. Until the next day, I got a phone call from Dumfries and family saying they thought I had a heart attack, but they decided they would run it again because they were quite baffled about it. An hour later, I got another phone call saying they wanted me at Dumfries and family. So away I went. And then 4 days later, I was helicoptered up to Golden Jubilee on the Sunday night, which only takes half an hour for here at the Jubilee. And 3 days later, I underwent a treble heart bypass. And so what they do, they take your veins out your legs and put them in your heart. And after I recouped over that, I wanted to get back to my Tai Chi, which I had done 4 years previously anyway. So I decided that it was payback time, because National Health Service, as we know, have only got a limited amount of money and people. So you can only get a certain amount of professional help, which is brilliant. And so I went back to my Tai Chi, and I decided that I would like to learn to be a teacher. So I volunteered, and I did my first aid. You don't become a teacher in 2 days, it takes quite a long time. But I did my first aid, and then I went for my certificate to teach for the diabetics. And then this year, I went up to Kirkcaldy, and I did for arthritis first part. So I'm waiting to go for my arthritis second part. But what happens when you're recouping and you go up to cardiac unit, and it's a brilliant place, and it helps to build your health back up again. But after 3 months, that's it. So what we do over at North West Resource Centre, we take these people and we carry on their exercises and build them up as well. Now they're with us a 1.5 to 2 years, and we take them from cardiac unit, diabetic unit, cancer unit, and we have them right across the board, all illnesses, you know, and we teach these people to breathe properly, to exercise safely, and hopefully that we can build up their health. And build up their health, and possibly keeps them out of the surgeries, keeps them out of hospital, and give them not a longer life, but a better life, and a much happier life. Because if we weren't carrying on for that 1.5, 2 years, possibly more, then these people, some of these people are going to be sitting at home, looking at 4 walls, getting depressed, sitting in the doctor's surgeries, going up there, and I've been there, done it with a t-shirt. And these people, they're coming out and they're in a community, and they're learning different things, they're socialising, and we have people. One of them was 84 years old. She was still doing her Tai Chi, but unfortunately she had a bit of an accident. But they're all ages. They're not just pensioners, they're from all ages and all walks of life. And that's what we try to do. We also have them in Stranraer, Summerhill, and all these places, and that's exactly what we do.
Unfortunately, our next speaker, Mark, couldn't be with us this morning. However, inspectors found when they met with him, when he was part of a focus group in Dumfries Prison, he was there during our inspection, and since then has come out, has been released, and gave a bit of his story to Nistawiri Committee. So Jackie, his worker, is going to read the transcript that he made there, because Mark's actually on community service this morning for a previous conviction, nothing to do with since he's been released. It's all good news, I assure you.
Good morning, I'm Jackie Sweeney and I'm Community Learning Assistant at Dumfries Prison, and I have been since 2004. I'm just going to read you Mark's impact statement. I first engaged with community learning and development in 2005. I met Jackie when I asked for some help with my reading, writing and numbers. Back then I had no confidence. I grew up in care and progressed to offending at a young age. Going to school was the last thing on my mind. I remember being given a piece of work to do, and because I couldn't do it, the teacher prodding me in the back and telling me to hurry up. I felt humiliated in front of my class. Being small, I was often a target, but I developed ways of coping, and that was to fight. My behaviour led to me being excluded on a number of occasions. Offending became an easy option for me, but led to a number of convictions and custodial sentences. Prison is not an easy way of life, particularly if you can't read or write. So you need to develop ways to survive. I continued my fighting ways in prison. I'd been given some support with my reading and writing in another prison by a fellow prisoner, and after meeting Jackie, I decided I'd seek further help. During one of our first sessions, Jackie assessed me for dyslexia, and I discovered that I had strong dyslexic indicators. This came as a sense of relief to me. I wasn't thick or stupid. As Jackie said, I just see things differently. Since 2005, I've been in and out of prison. Within prison, I continued to get help with my reading and writing, and even learnt how to use a computer. I also began to attend art classes, which I enjoyed because I've always been good at art. Out with prison, although Jackie had referred me several times to continue with my learning, I was always too busy with other things. Being in prison for long spells makes you institutionalised. And I found that on release, it was difficult to adjust to life outside. My self-esteem was low, and it was often easier to revert back to offending, because that's what I knew. Sometimes, if things got really bad, I'd reoffend just to get sent back to prison. In a strange way, that is where I felt safe. Whilst in prison, I was given help with my anger issues. Through prison programmes and counselling, I've learnt to take more responsibility for my actions, and I'm beginning to take more control. It's taken me several years and a great deal of hard work to gain confidence in myself. I now realise that I have skills and talents that I can actually get paid for, or I can use to help other people. Maybe the penny has finally dropped. Maybe I'm just older and wiser, or maybe everything has just happened at the right time. I've recently been given a number of opportunities, including assisting Community Learning's youth work service with a graffiti art project and a chance to attend an art course at Dumfries and Galloway College. Things are really going well for me at last. Can I just finish by saying that I'm just one of the many people that Jackie has assisted over the years, and I know that there are many more in Dumfries Prison that need her help. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Heather Hall, who's a volunteer with the Inspired Community Enterprise Trust.
The HMIE inspection of Dumfries Learning Community includes closely examining and inspecting how community organisations are supported and developed. The Hub, Your Community Action Centre, a voluntary sector charity, is a resource base which provides a wraparound support to grow the range, the ever-growing range, I have to say, of voluntary organisations based at the Hub. These organisations all deliver much-needed and wanted services within their community. Inspired Community Enterprise Trust is a new organisation established to set up a community cafe to provide employability options for young people with additional support needs. We are based at the Hub during our development stage, and we've been helped with affordable, accessible accommodation, reception facilities, access to volunteers, networking with the other organisations that are based there, accounts, best practice, and innumerable other day-to-day supports that we have had. We really value this support because it's helped us to become a respected, emerging social enterprise. The Hub was involved with the inspection as a provider of community learning and development, and we were really happy to be involved to show the difference that this makes to the community, to community organisations just like ours who want to serve the community with excellence. Thank you.
And finally, we have Louise Hill, who's a young person and young leader.
Hi, my name is Louise Hill. I'm 20 years old and I first accessed youth work services when I was 17. I was referred to the Nestdale Challenge by one of my support workers, and this was the beginning of my road to recovery. I didn't realise it at the time, but this sort of triggered a domino effect and things began to get better for me bit by bit. It's been a long road to where I am now, and I wouldn't be here if it weren't for the Oasis and the Yes and the wonderful workers there. When I started the Nestdale Challenge, it was a struggle to get out of bed each morning. I didn't want to talk to anyone, and I didn't see the point in me going. Week by week, little things changed for me. I learned that I was still capable of doing things, like making new friends and even getting up before noon. After the Nestdale Challenge ended, Kelly talked me into joining a new group starting up called the Global Education Project. This started as a tiny group of 4 or 5 people based up at the Northwest Resource Centre. The aims of the group were to learn about issues, locally and globally, and to then educate our community about what we can do. One of our first projects was to learn about Amnesty International, and then we took it to other groups around Dumfries and tried to explain it to others. We gathered signatures and wrote letters trying to get unfairly imprisoned people freed. Projects like this made me feel like there was something worth fighting for, even if I didn't feel like fighting for myself. We learned about child soldiers in Africa, the increasing problem of homelessness and poverty in our own country, and we took action by ourselves. We organised a big sleep out and raised funds and awareness to help. We attended a conference in Edinburgh on poverty around the world, and we wrote newsletters about these issues. Through the Oasis Young Leader programme, I started volunteering at a group on a Monday night for young people with additional support needs, which is now called Super Mondays. By being given responsibility, this has helped me develop a sense of worth and made me feel more in control of my own life. Through being part of Global Ed and a young person in youth work has offered me many opportunities that I wouldn't have dreamed of being a part of. The best example of this, but by no means the only, would be that next year I have the opportunity to be a part of an international volunteers conference in Australia. I'll even be helping organise this conference by trying to represent the voice of European youth volunteers with fellow representative Cara Hiles. This is so huge, I still can't quite get my head around it. This year alone, I've worked at Youth Fest and Youth Beats, spent a chilly weekend on the Isle of Mull learning about religion through Global Ed. I've met Nelson Mandela's bodyguard and had dinner with him, attended the Young Scot Awards, and have just started a degree in computing at the University of West Scotland. 3 years ago, I wouldn't have believed a word of this. 3 years ago, I would have said that I'd be long gone by now. But Youth Work Nestdale has given me a second chance. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'd like to thank everyone for sharing their moving and inspiring stories. I think it also shows the difference they are now making, not only in their own lives, but in the communities they live in. I think what it does show is it shows a positive impact that our council and partner services provide, and I think we should give everybody a thanks. Can I turn back to the report? Do members have any questions? On the report? No? Can I now open up the meeting to member debate? No? Can I now turn to the recommendations then? Members are asked to note the findings of the recent Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Education inspection of Dumfries Academy as detailed in 3.2. Can we note? We have received the presentation, so that's 2.2. 2.3, can we note the creative method of evidence in the delivery of outcomes achieved by individuals and communities and request the area committee to consider a similar format for local delivery. Noted. Thank you. Now moving on to item 10. This is a report by the external audit of 2012 on the audit of 2012-13 audit of Dumfries and Galloway Council. Report by Head of Finance. This is a report that's legally required to be submitted to the Council within 2 months of receiving the certified abstract of accounts and external auditor's report to members on those accounts. The main purpose of the external auditor's report to members is to highlight any significant matters that have arisen during the course of the audit. The key issues arising from the audit that require to be addressed have been summarised in the action plan, which is attached to the end of the external auditor's report. Management responses have been attached to each action point. Updates and actions will be presented to future Audit and Risk Management Committee meetings. I think members will be pleased to note that there are no qualifications in the report and that the financial statements provide a true and fair view of the Council's financial position. The action plan, which is at Appendix 1, contains 7 actions, all of which the Council are well aware of and which are being addressed. For example, we have a report on equal pay later on in the agenda. I am sure the Council would want to congratulate the finance team and everyone involved in the annual audit process And if Paul or Fiona, Julian, so none of them have turned up. Good. So Julian will be pleased to answer all of the questions then that members might have. Ian?
I would just echo your sentiments, Leader, on the job that Finance have done. I think it's a credit to this council, and the report is a credit to this council. Could I just ask on the audit accounts on page 81, the list of sundry debtors has dropped substantially between 11-12 and 12-13. Have you any indication of what it's likely to be for the 13-14 period? I know it's early to tell, but are we still on a declining figure?
Julian?
The sundry debtors is a moving fee. It sort of changes on a daily basis as we start paying invoices and as we start, as we receive different details. But the reason it changed last year was a change in the approach to do with the system, with moving from PowerSoft to Integra, and the way in which we were actually recording and paying invoices. So it's kind of, you can't really say at this stage, but we don't anticipate to be any issues.
Ian, you want back in?
Just briefly, so essentially it's an improving invoicing system that's at the heart of this.
Yeah, I would say we're starting to see significant improvements with Integra in the way in which we're processing payments and invoices at the moment. So we should hopefully see that improving going forward. But you can't really say. It all depends on when we get invoices in at the end of the year.
Okay, Jane.
Thank you. Yes, indeed, this looks like a good report and a good reflection on the council's work. So, indeed, thank you to the staff. And I just wanted to ask two things. The issue of the area of focus being risk of fraud in expenditure recognition, that's on page 83, Action 2, Leader. I just wondered if I could ask... Is it surprising that we should not have PwC able to rely on our controls through internal audit concerning accounts payable? Is that unusual, or is that actually something which other councils would experience?
Gillian?
I think that's a standard statement that's included within all sets of accounts, and that you can't have full assurance in any kind of detail that there's always a risk of error, because they only sample, a small area, but within that, we were obviously within that kind of margin. But it's a standard statement that all auditors will put in the accounts, I believe.
Jane, you want back in?
I do, Leader. It's rather more. I imagine that you're going to send this off to Audit and Risk to have looked at very carefully. But it's really a question of the expectation was that we would be able to rely upon the controls put in by the council, and due to a high level of exceptions found in the testing, we can't rely on that. And that's really what I'm asking about, is whether or not it is unusual in councils that it has been found that we cannot rely, or the auditors cannot rely upon our systems.
Gavin?
In identifying the audit plan and the use of internal audit resources, we work on a risk basis. And in identification of the plan, we agreed that the risk of fraud within our systems was low, and therefore our internal audit resources have been moved into areas such as supporting the accounts payable reviews and work around social work. What this is a more of a hint to say that they would have liked us to have done their work through ours. So this is the first bid for our extra money for next year. My view is our internal audit resources should always be focused in areas of risk identified by this council. But they'd ideally like this, but they would require as low-level work to be done by councils, not them. So it's part of the debate. But no, this is quite common, and it's just where what they would like us to do differs from our risk assessment.
Ivor?
Thank you, Leader. It's just with regard to the action plan, are we confident that we have the resources in place to deliver an action plan, or do we need to be looking to any of the areas for either additional officers or additional financial resources.
I would say that, I would say that a significant number of these ones have actually more or less been fully carried out at the moment. There are some that obviously take a longer period of time, but at the moment we're significantly forward on the work plan at the moment and would anticipate them all being achieved within the timescales.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. This is a question, it's more specifically for the pension fund, but probably applies to finance in general. I notice on page 9, the staffing complement is 4, 2 of which have considerable average years of experience. Are we satisfied that we've got succession planning in place? Obviously, these are fairly specialised and skilled jobs. Is the council quite satisfied that it has proper succession management in place? And that is a more wide question for finances in general, but specifically on pensions.
Insofar as you can be satisfied, yes. We do have succession plans. We are looking closely at succession planning, not only in finance, but across the council.
You want in?
No, I just reiterate what Alex said, is that we are fully aware that it's a small team, and we're actually actively looking at ways of training up staff to make sure that succession planning isn't an issue in the future.
Gavin?
Thank you, Leader. There's also we need to bring into consideration there is currently a national review of pension fund administration being undertaken across Scotland to see if there are efficiencies and economies that could be made from having one administration of all the funds, but still maintaining the separation of the individual funds. So that will be coming back to COSLA and then back to members, I would suspect, probably around April of next year. So that review's underway. So following on the recommendations about that, about skills, quality and expertise, we will bring that back to the appropriate committee of this council.
Yeah, Alistair.
Thank you, Leader. I refer to Appendix 1 Action Plan, specifically Item 2 Accounts Payable Controls. Some concern has been expressed to me by our partnership providers in terms of delays in payments, which has given them some cash flow problems. I would like to seek the assurance that this difficulty will be ironed out in the near future.
Joanne?
Yes, thanks. Since that issue has been identified, we've actually improved the processes within the control team with the purchase ledger team, and they now have like a set procedural, and we have no one. I think we were at one point during last year, we were about 14 days delay with processing invoices. That is now down to a 2-day delay. So we're continually seeing improvements in the timing of paying invoices, and we're actively chasing up departments for authorising those so that the delays that services see should be minimised.
Okay, thank you. Right, Roy first.
Thanks, Chair. Really, it's just a remark on accepting that this is an historical document. It's on the page 87 of the welfare reform, and it's really the impact welfare reform will have on the budget next year. And it might be quite interesting to note that yesterday, or rather, yes, this is Thursday, Tuesday, I believe it was, there was a case won or was successful in the first stage tribunal in Stranraer on disability. So that should have an impact on our budget in terms of those that have been denied and others who may be appealing on the same ground. And it would be interesting for the Welfare Reform Subcommittee perhaps to get a copy of that. And it was the DIGCAS who represented the person, just to see what the impact of that might be on next year's budget. On page 84, Chair, and I know again an overspend in social work, and I hope we are able to address that issue in next year's budget. but it's to the Education Service I draw attention, and it's reported an underspend of £500,000 achieved due to a reduction in supply teacher costs. We in the West have raised this and appreciate the reply I got from you, Chair. It's maybe something that the area committee have to look at, but it's the progress that is being made in terms of supply teacher, the availability of supply teachers west of the region where there is a significant problem, and it's the impact of that savings on what is regarded as supply teachers, notwithstanding that it is difficult to get supply teachers, but the issue is continual full-time teachers and whether we can use that underspend to attract teachers west of the region as we have done in the past.
Okay, on that point, we'll pick that up at the area committee, I think. But John, do you want to come in anything?
Just to say that primarily I think the underspend on or the reduction in costs in supply teaching was actually as a result of an active approach for vacancy management within teaching, and I think it was about they'd introduced new procedures to actually reduce the extent of absences within teachers, so that was why they were primarily seeing a reduction in supply costs, was they were actively managing that issue.
Okay, Stephen.
Thank you, Leader. It was just following up on questions from members previously on the management override of controls, action point 3. On page 83, it alludes to the fact that there's been a migration to the new Integra system, but within action 3, it's flagging up limitations in the current report and functionality of the Integra system. I presume that's been dealt with as part of the action point. And with your leave, Leader, if it's okay, just on the common good training for members, I know that's particularly with reference to Lowerburn challenge, but the implementation date's got there as August 2014. Would that include, would member training for common good subcommittees happen before that or after that's been concluded? Thank you.
Alex?
Before that, there are a number of actions required in there in terms of common goods. Particularly, a lot of research has got to be done, and that's why the 2014 date's in, but the training will take place before then, yes.
Gillian?
Sorry, I missed that. With the Integra, yes, the Integra system is, we have an ongoing development timetable, and we're currently implementing new upgrades within the system to try and improve the reporting processes within there, and those are being rolled out on a kind of test basis within the sort of finance functionality first, and then they get rolled out within the E-Series version, which is the version that's available to all budget holders, and that's actively being monitored on a monthly basis.
Okay, can we move to the recommendations? We've received the annual accounts. Can we note that the external audit has given an unqualified opinion that accounts provide a true and fair view of the Council's financial position and income and expenditure for the year?
Good.
And can we note that the external auditor's report and action plan and the updates and actions will be presented to future audit and risk management committees? Thank you. Moving on to item 11, this is a report by the external audit on the 2012-13 audit of Dumfries and Galloway Council Pension Fund. This is a report by the Head of Finance. This is again a report which is legally required to be laid before the Council. The Council's pension fund is now separately audited, and again the report is unqualified. As with the previous report, the main purpose of the external auditor's report to members is to highlight any significant matters that have arisen during the course of the audit. Again, as with the previous report, the key issues arising from the audit that requires to be addressed has been summarised in the action plan, which is attached at the end of the external auditor's report. Management response has been attached to the action plan. Updates on the action plan will be presented to the future pension subcommittee meetings. We appear to have a very healthy pension fund, and there is clearly good member involvement in its stewardship. I think it's back to Gillian again for answering any questions. Hiding behind there won't. Yeah. Okay. Can I open up the site for members? Ian?
Thanks, Leader. Just a general question. It's regards to page 110. I think it's fairly obvious. There's a key figures there in investments, but there's a clear. It looks very positive, as you've already touched on, in regards to the investments. I mean, it's went for 2012. It's went from 520 million up to nearly 590 million in value. An investment return 7.3 million in 2012, and it's up to near 60. Well, just over 66 million this year. Just to get a quick summary for Gillian, if we could, on the reasons for that, please.
Gillian?
I think it's just highlighted at the side in the commentary. I have to admit this isn't an area that I'm particularly knowledgeable on. It's Andy's the kind of expert within this area. But the increase in value is mainly to do with the pooled investment vehicles, and it's most entirely due to changes in the market value. So it's about the investments that we've basically got and what the market is at that time. And is basically, this is quite a fluid thing, as well as, you know, the market changes on a daily basis. So it's whatever it was at that point in time, the 31st of March.
Okay, Stephen.
Thanks again, Leader. Yeah, it was just a question. Page 113, it references the discrepancy between the active members and the 13 more pensioners at the end of 2012 year end. So one of the notes was that there should be a more robust process regarding the recording and disclosure of membership statistics. And I was just wondering, would the progress on that be reported to the next pension subcommittee, or is that something you can answer just now?
Gillian?
I'm not quite sure about that. I'll double check with Andy, but I know that this is an area that he has been progressing on, and he's been getting his support staff to work on quite actively. So I can certainly double check that with him, whether he'll be presenting that to the next pension sub.
Alex, you want to come in?
I can certainly give the member the reassurance. This has been reported to members. We have a number of members of the Pension Fund Subcommittee who get two pensions, and we're tying up the stats to work together. That work's ongoing through HR and with Andy, and I think the Pension Fund Subcommittee will get a positive report back very shortly.
George?
Thanks, Leader. Just a comment. I'm sorry Andy isn't here today, actually, but just to put in record the Pension Fund Subcommittee's thanks to Andy for, for Andy's team for all the work that we've done over the course of the year for this. And without him, I think we would have struggled to produce such good figures. Thanks.
Okay, can we move to the recommendations? We've received the Pension Fund Annual Report. Can we note that the external auditor has given an unqualified opinion that accounts provide a true and fair view of the Council's financial position and income and expenditure for the year?
Noted.
Can we note the external auditor's report and action plan, and the updates will be presented to future pension subcommittee? Thank you. Moving on to the review of schemes of delegation, report by the Director of Chief Executive Services. This report comes from the consideration of the subcommittee, which we established earlier in the year to look at schemes of delegation, amongst other things. The report asks members to agree a number of amendments to the Council scheme administration and delegation. There is no reference in the scheme to the Police, Fire and Rescue Subcommittee. This has now been rectified on the revised page issued today. I think everyone should have that. And we will make sure this is included in the scheme once approved. I think the easiest way to deal with this report would be to go through it a point at a time. Proposed revisions to the scheme of delegation are highlighted in the revised scheme at Appendix 1. And I'm sure that Alex will answer any questions as we go through. The first one is the report proposes the establishment of a Community and Customer Services Committee. This is at 3.1.1, and its remit is set out at paragraph 5.2 in the scheme of administration and delegation. This is to committee on page 128. The establishment of this committee has effects on the remit of the Policy and Resources Committee and the Planning, Housing and Environment Services Committee, and members will note the inclusion of the reporting of environmental health trading standards and community safety issues. Are there any questions or comments on this? Ivor?
Just curiosity, I can't remember what the reason was. Corporate committees against the strategic committee, would community and customer services not be a strategic service committee rather than a corporate committee? Just for 3.4 in the appendix.
Okay, Alex?
If members wish that change made, I'm happy to make that change.
So make that change. Other questions on that? I'll come to the overall recommendations at the end, but in general, members are happy to accept the proposals for the new committee. Okay. There is a proposal that the name of the Planning, Housing and Environment Services Committee be amended to reflect what it does, and the new title suggested is Economic, Environment and Infrastructure Committee. This is at point 3.1.2. Sorry, economy. That's for another debate. But economy, the remit of that committee was set out in that paragraph 5.4 on page 129 has been amended to reflect the Council's priorities and commitments, particularly in relation to the economic development, and it will also receive monitoring and performance reports on services commissioned through DG First. That was a fraudulent slip there. Could I make a suggestion that that we use the word economy rather than economic, as it probably makes more sense. So we read Economy, Environment and Infrastructure Committee. Any questions, comments? John?
Yes, I'm just sort of interested to ask the members through you who are on this committee as to why we haven't got any mention of Europe in this. In this, I would just suggest to members that I think we probably should reach out, because there's no particular mention of European activity. Now, I think it's been expunged, Leader, from, if you look at 541, seems to come out. I would just suggest that it should be clear that we are looking out with ourselves, not simply merely within. And also, given the Council's priorities, I am also surprised in 541 that you haven't made any mention of Upper Nithsdale. We understand clearly that there is no mention of the Maccas and the Stewartry, but you did actually actively mention Upper Nithsdale, so I'm quite surprised you haven't put it in there.
Yeah, Colin, I think you wanted in on this.
No, I mean, I think that would be a good suggestion to include Upper Nithsdale in that remit, because it is part of the 4 priorities since the new. I mean, I think this draft was probably drawn up prior to the change that took place, and I think that's where the issue rises. I think it's important to update that based on the changes that were agreed at the at full council.
You want in?
I'm happy to make that change, John.
Okay, anyone else? Sorry, on Europe. Yep. Again. Ivor?
Chair, I can understand Councillor Maitland's point in this, but if we were to include everything in the title that's in the former Planning, Housing and Environment Services, we'd have a page for the name itself rather than actually having to have one line. And I think the economy and how we get into Europe is part of the economy, because we're reliant on that through CAP, and various other different funding streams. So I think it is embedded in there, maybe not overtly, but it is there.
I think that is the case, yeah. It's, even though it's not named, it is inherent in part of the remit. Yep. Okay, again, sorry, Ian.
Thanks very much, Leader. Just in regards, I mean, I picked up what Councillor Maitland was saying wrongly. I thought it's 5.4.1 you were asking for Europe to be included in there. I think it's wide enough anyways that it does include it, but were you being explicit in regards to putting it within the name of the actual committee? No, so it's to be included. I mean, I think it's wide enough at 5.4.1 that it would be included. Just, I want clarity in that, Leader.
I think there's no problem with that, yeah. I mean, we can mention Europe in 5.4.1, but not in the name. Okay, again, I'll come to the formal recommendations at the end, but, oh, sorry, David, forgot about you.
I'll let you off this time. It's just on 5.4.2, planning and building standards. You're including determining planning applications. Does that mean you're doing away with the planning applications committee, or is that just a statement?
Yeah, that's just a statement. It's just a statement. Patsy?
Yeah, could I just ask about 6.2 on the report, which is 2 on the report, which is to do with the Employment and Appeals Subcommittee. I see that you're keeping it as a membership of 19 for appointments.
Can I say we'll go through it one at a time, yeah?
Oh, sorry, I thought we had done
No.
EEIC or whatever it is. Sorry.
Right, thank you for that. Again, you know, I'll come to the formal recommendations at the end on that. But yeah, members happy with the proposed new title as well? Economy instead of economic? Okay. Okay, the subcommittee is recommending at 3.1.3 the widening of the remit of area committees to ensure that they are involved in the monitoring of local services and any major strategic initiatives particularly affecting their area. Are there any questions, comments on this? Jim?
Thanks, Chair. I'm taking that will include the future health and social care events that are happening across the region as well.
Yes. Okay, turning to the Welfare Reform Subcommittee at 3.1.4. I think this has been a very successful ad hoc subcommittee of the Council, and it is recommended that it be established as a standing subcommittee of Policy and Resources Committee, with full powers to determine policy expenditure on the welfare reform related issues. Any questions, comments? Jane?
Leader, could I just ask about the issue of powers to determine policy and expenditure? I would just want to understand exactly what that means. I think it's quite important that we are clear about its powers and how, if it does, bring budget to itself. Who produces the budget, and who's in charge of it?
Okay, Alex first and then Colin.
The budget would still be the responsibility of the Policy and Resources Committee. Initially the Council, then the Policy and Resources Committee. There would be a budget allocated to the Welfare Reform Subcommittee. What we currently have, Leader, is the Welfare Reform Subcommittee determines a policy, makes a recommendation to Policy and Resources say yes, and then go back. It says, can I have the money now? And then go back to Policy and Resources. We're going round in a fairly circular motion, and we felt that the subcommittee felt that it was appropriate, given the success of the Welfare Reform Sub and the way its recommendations have been clearly adopted and expenditure approved, that it should just have the powers to do that, still within the remit of Policy and Resources, however.
Jane, you went back in?
If I could just be absolutely clear then, so it would be the question of if more money was required or needed by the Welfare Reform Subcommittee, it would go back to Policy and Resources and say, we need it for this particular...
Yes.
Particular...
Yes.
issue. Okay, that's
Colin?
fine.
Okay, are members happy with the proposals? Yep. Okay. The next main point in the report is the relation to member and officer protocol. This is at section 4 on page 116. The subcommittee proposes tightening up the member officer and protocol to ensure that there is greater member involvement in issues affecting their wards. It also clarifies issues regarding the calling of meetings within wards. Are there any questions, comments? Graham?
Just a quick comment, Chair. Members would be more directly involved in decisions taken within their wards if this new administration never again delegates to officers to implement budget cuts. That's been a disaster in the West. I hope we have learned from it and that in the future elected members carry out the duties they're elected to do, and we don't delegate to officers to implement airy-fairy budget savings of which none of us were aware of the implications.
Points taken. Members, sorry, Alistair.
Thanks, Leader. Just a comment on 4.2 and a question. Second sentence, Councillor Solis produced a guidance note for officers in relation to multi-member ward working. Was that ever disseminated?
Alex?
Yes, sir. It's part of the current wadger papers, for want of a better term, that members get. I'm bound to say that some of the recommendations made by Solis and Cosla did not come well with Dumfries and Galloway Council. Members were not happy with them, which is why you probably don't hear very much about them, sir.
Thank you very much for that technical terminology. Right, so members happy with the proposal? Yep. The next proposal is regarding members' role descriptions. This is at section 5 on page 117. There is a requirement in the Council to provide role descriptions for members which ties in with the Code of Conduct. There is a more concise role description at Appendix 2 which provides clarity not only for members but also for the public as to what they can and cannot expect their councillor to do. Are there any questions, comments? Right, members happy with the revised role description? Okay. The next point at section 6 on page 117 is in relation to proportionality committee sizes. The subcommittee agreed to review the size of committees and subcommittees based on proportionality with particular reference to subcommittees with a membership of 7. The QC opinion has been obtained to the effect that the Council's current arrangements are within the law, and it is for the Council to determine the size of its committee and subcommittees. The subcommittee has recommended no change to subcommittee sizes at this stage. The administration have no problem with considering these issues if and when any new committees are proposed in the future, but don't see any benefit of amending the existing committees. Any questions, comments? William?
Yeah, Chair, it's really in relation to 6.2 and relating that back to page 135 in terms of standing subcommittees, item 6. And it starts off by saying the Council will establish standing subcommittees of the following committees comprising 11 members. And then in bold, the change with the exception of the Employment Appeals Committee, member of 19, and making appointments of members of 7, the purpose of reviewing officers and social work service subcommittee. It goes on to say all subcommittees are based on proportionality. It's just clarity, Chair, to that, you know, because what it says here, subcommittees will comprise of 11 members. Notwithstanding, it's the Council that can determine, as Council's opinion has alluded to, but it clearly says here that it will be 11 members, with the exception to the 2 subcommittees referred to in bold.
Alex?
Thank you, Chairman. The subcommittees the issue of proportionality, all subcommittees are based on proportionality. The issue goes when you come to a subcommittee of fewer than 11 members, where certain groups on the council do not achieve the proportionality required to get one member on that subcommittee. You've currently got the details, and I think the leaders indicated that you would be looking at that in the future. But currently, I accept that if you go to a subcommittee of 7 members, some groups do not get representation on it. That's the way the arithmetic works.
But it's still based on proportionality?
Yes, sir.
Jane?
Thank you very much indeed. I have no particular difficulties with what is being proposed here, but I will point out that the administration has a new 7th priority, which is to improve the way the council works. And so I wonder if you can help me, Leader, because one of the bullet points here was to review the council's committee structure to maximise councillors' involvement. So I wonder if you could help me, bearing in mind that the arrangements that you've got here actually arguably debar some members from being involved naturally through proportionality. As I say, I have no difficulty, but this is your priority, so maybe you could help me explain.
Yes, I think I have explained that the committees are working well at the moment with this proportionality, as was agreed by the last, and I think it was yourself during the last administration. We don't see any need to change that at the moment. You know, if there are committees that come up in the future, you know, it will be up to the council to decide, or the committee to decide the numbers on them numbers on them committee, and you know, if they want a different number on these committees, then they will have that. Sorry, you want to back in?
Yeah, Chair.
Misty, I noticed your hand up there at the end.
I knew you'd come back round, Ronnie. No, I don't know if the question was actually answered, Chair, because it clearly says in standing subcommittee under standing orders at 6, and it's the correlation between what is in the report to this. And it says here, the Council has established standing subcommittees of the following committees comprising of 11, and then it goes on to read these. The reading of that would imply, or clearly lays out, that it should be 11 members, other than the exceptions that are in bold there, that those would be the changes if we accept the amendments to standing orders today. So in that respect, on reading that, it says that they will comprise of 11, which reflects proportionality. I have no difficulty with what's being said in the proportionality. It's the size. It says 11 there, with the 2 exceptions.
If members determine today, sir, that there will be a standing subcommittee on welfare reform with a membership of 7, that the scheme will be amended accordingly to take account of that.
Tom?
I think Councillor Scobie's confusing 2 separate things. Item 6 is standing subcommittees of the full council, not subcommittees of other committees. If you look at that page there, you've got Employment Appeals Subcommittee. Turn the page, Pension Subcommittee, which is a standing subcommittee of the full council, the Crichton Subcommittee, which is a standing committee of the full council. Elsewhere in the standing orders, it gives the right of parent committees, whether it be the Education Committee, Social Work Committee, to appoint subcommittees, and those parent committees can determine the size of the subcommittee. That is contained elsewhere within the standing orders. Councillor Scobie's confusing the 2 separate subcommittees.
Okay, George, sorry, but I think you wanted in as well. Jane must have put her hand up twice then.
Leader, it's just because we couldn't attract your attention, that's all.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's to do with the Employment and Appeals Committee, membership of 19 for the purpose of making appointments, and a membership of 7 for the purposes of reviewing officer decisions. Does that mean that we elect a chair would be elected on each occasion, or does it mean that it's a standing, the chair is permanent, and it's a chair plus 6 on that committee?
Okay, Tom, I'll bring you in this.
I would have thought since we appointed the chair of the Employment Appeals Committee, it would be natural that the chair would chair all meetings. And you know, if he wasn't available, then elect the chair on the day as he can do under standing orders. I thought that would have been the ideal way to proceed.
Okay. Sorry, Patsy.
At long last, thank you. I am here. Okay, I'm not over there. I am here.
It's unfortunate.
And there's no light. There's no light.
It's unfortunate, Patsy. I've got a bad left eye, so. Well.
Excuse. Can I just ask, back to the Employment and Appeals Subcommittee? I had thought that we had considered the idea that everybody on that committee would be qualified to sit on the subcommittee of 7 for reviewing officer's decision, and it would be run rather like the LRB, and it would be a sort of, you know, rotational sort of thing who is available, and therefore it wouldn't just be a standing 7. But that's not to be. It was in order that we were always quorate.
I think it's the same scenario as what you're saying there, Patsy, but I'll bring Tom in again just to...
Sorry, when did Councillor McCockery become an officer?
I'm taking it, it was in the subcommittee, and the subcommittee had full details of that.
I would actually like to hear from our governance officer, please.
Yes, I'll bring in Tom McCockery first.
I think the feeling of the subcommittee members when they looked at this was that the current setup is 11 members, and if they're not there, there's 11 substitutes to pick from, and that wasn't working very well, because quite often you were struggling to get a quorum sometimes because folk weren't arranging for substitutes. So for the purposes of appointments and any policy change, because that should be included as well, the policy changes, that would be done by all 19 members for the purposes of hearing appeals, to make it less intimidating for people coming forward for appeals. It should be 7 members. I think the intention was the chairman and 6 others done on a rotational basis. It wouldn't be a standing 7 members all the time. That was certainly the intention of what the members wanted anyway.
Okay, Alex, have you any further to add on that?
I just confirm that that was my understanding of the discussion that took place at the subcommittee.
Thank you. Alistair? Oh, sorry, Ivor first.
It's getting back to Councillor Scobie's point. It quite clearly says that the Council has established standing subcommittees of the following committees. That also includes P&R, where it says Welfare Reform Sub, and the Housing Sub of EEI now. Now, my understanding is all standing subcommittees of any committee have to actually be brought to full council for ratification. It's only ad hoc ones that can be set up, so therefore the numbers will apply to all the ones on pages 135 and 136, other than the ones defined in the bold, the social work services and employment appeals.
Okay, Alistair.
Thank you, Leader. I tried to be helpful. I was recently appointed to be chairman of the Employment and Appeals Subcommittee, and my understanding was that it was not rotational, but I would chair that when I was available. I was not available last week, and it was not my fault because I notified everybody I wouldn't be here, but somehow it slipped through the net. It's difficult to chair a meeting when you're riding a camel in the middle of the Sahara Desert.
Okay, I think we'll move on. Willie?
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me back in. It's comforting to know that we have so many constitutional experts in our midst. However, you know, and Ivor has eloquently put it, the standing subcommittee clearly says the Council has established standing subcommittees of the following committees comprising of 11. If there is any clarification needed, it's needed in the standing orders in terms of spelling out that each subcommittee will be determined by the parent committee following the delegation, because under policy and resources, it doesn't state that. So it doesn't, that it will set its numbers by the parent committee. So if there's anything needed, it needs clarification to the standing orders because on reading that, subcommittees have 11. The council, because it goes on, Dumfries and Galloway Council under 6.1.1, that's where it defines the Dumfries and Galloway Council as the primary committee body. So it does need clarification, Chair, and I tend to read it the way that Ivor has put the issue.
Alex?
I think there's a lack of clarity there. I'll accept responsibility for that. The decision taken by the subcommittee was to recommend to the council that there be a welfare reform subcommittee with full powers. It was to be a subcommittee of the Policy and Resources Committee. It's for members to determine how many members are on that subcommittee. If the determination is 7, obviously Standing Order 6 needs a tweak. I can do that. That's not a problem. It's probably, shall we say, bad craftsmanship on my part in rewriting the Standing Order. But I'm quite happy to change that. My understanding is it's 7, and we can change the Standing Order to comply with that. That's not an issue. It's in the wordsmith.
Okay. Finally, there's outstanding business for the subcommittee as outlined at section 7 on page 117. And the administration would wish the subcommittee to continue and complete these tasks and have them reported back to full council. Are there any questions, comments? Ian?
Thanks, Leader. It was the previous point. I had my hand up a couple of times, but your bad left eye came into play there. Leader, just in regards to, it was the employment appeals, the issue with, I've not got so much an issue with the 19 members going down to 7, but proportionality-wise, that's removed. I think it should be a focus on proportionality with the 7, where it can be applied. I think there should be a basis there. I don't think that's intrinsic within the report, unless I've missed that.
Yep. It is implied, sir, in the report.
Okay. Are there any questions or comment on the business for the subcommittee as outlined in section 7 on page 117? June?
Thank you. Yes, it was just to ask about the issue of a performance management framework and business bureau. Would the ad hoc subcommittee be looking at how that fits into our arrangements? Would that be the right thing to do, or where's that going to happen? Leader, please, if you could help me with that.
That's not part of the remit. It's for the administration, I think. Okay, Alex, can you provide a resume of...
Thank you, Chairman. Going through the issues, I think I don't want to determine the decisions of members in terms of the recommendations, but my understanding is that you've adopted the proposals from the subcommittee in relation to the establishment of the new Community and Customer Services Committee, subject to the fact it'll be a strategic committee rather than a corporate committee. You've agreed the change of name to Economy, Environment and Infrastructure Committee, plus a couple of minor tweaks to its remit. You've agreed to the widening of the area committee remits. You've agreed to the establishment of Welfare Reform Subcommittee with a membership of 7. You've agreed alterations or a tightening of the member officer protocol and member role descriptions, and you've agreed the proportionality issue following upon a legal opinion having been obtained. There are also a number of outstanding issues which members felt that they would want to deal with, members of the subcommittee felt they would want to deal with after the budget process had been completed, and meetings will be fixed up for the subcommittee at that time.
Gil?
Thanks, Leader, with your indulgence. We were skipping through, so I kind of missed this at the time. Page 129 of 202 on the additional delegation for Education Committee, and I think they have it for CCS, social work and such like as well. It says receive monitoring and performance reports on services commissioned from DG First. Now, for CCS, it has a different wording, and it's in relation to community and customer services. For education, it says from DG First. There's obviously transport commissions in relation to FES, or what was FES, EEI now. And I just wonder if the wording of that might be better if it read something like receive monitoring and performance reports on services commissioned by education or in relation to education, because obviously we have more than DG First with education.
It's fine. Yep, fine. If we can go to the recommendations, can we agree the revised scheme administration delegation committees is detailed in Appendix 1? Agree the additional guidance under Section 6 of the member and officer protocol involvement of members in local businesses is detailed in 4.2. Agree the revised members' role descriptions as detailed at Appendix 2. Note Council's opinions are detailed in 6.1 and agree the position regarding committee sizes at 6.2. Note. Can we note the outstanding business the subcommittee as detailed at Section 7? Yeah. Just one other thing. Once we have now agreed the community customer services, so now we've established a new community customer services committee, I would propose that we elect the positions of chair and vice chair for this committee today. Okay. Could I have nominations for the chair?
I'd like to move Councillor Tom McCottery as chair. I take it it's a senior councillor position.
Do we have a seconder?
Happy second that, Chairman.
Okay. Can I have nominations for the vice chair? Archer?
Can I propose Alistair Garris as vice chair for that chair?
Can I have a seconder?
I'd like to second, Leader.
Any other nominations for both posts? Okay, thank you for that. Okay, moving on to item 13, which is vacancies in divisional licensing boards report by Director Chief Executive Service. This report invites members to fill vacancies in the memberships of Nithsdale and Wigton divisional licensing boards. There is a vacancy in the Nithsdale Divisional Licensing Board following the resignations of both John Dykes and Roberta Tuckfield. From the law provides that it's for the council to elect members to licensing boards, while Nithsdale Board could continue with 4 members. The Wigton Board is now down to 4 members, and the law provides that a board must have 5. Could I call for nominations of the 2 boards? First one for the Nithsdale Divisional Licensing Board. 1 member. Rob?
Propose Councillor Ferguson, Chairman.
Do we have a seconder? John Martin, yeah. Do we have nominations for the Wigton Divisional Licensing Board, Ian?
As he's indicated to be willing to, I would like to propose Councillor Wiper.
Happy to second that, Chair.
Any other nominations? Okay, thanks very much for that. This is the easy one again. Item 14. The 4th periodic review of the scheme for the establishment of community councils in Dumfries and Galloway. Report by Head of Improvement, Engagement and Community Services. I'm going to take a drink of water first. The council has a statutory duty to prepare a scheme for the establishment of community councils and review it periodically. The report provides members with an update on the progress being made with the 4th periodic review of the scheme for the establishment of community councils in Dumfries and Galloway and asks members to agree amendments to the scheme and its schedules. The final draft scheme will then be subject to further public consultation. The amendments to the scheme have been highlighted in Appendix 1, and I would particularly highlight the issues raised in Appendix 3, which details proposed amendments from the community councils and the public and officer recommendations in relation to these amendments. Again, it would be my intention to deal with this, with each of the recommendations in turn, so I'd appreciate if we could stick to that process, please. Alex, Haswell and Harry will answer any questions if... Okay, so if we can go through one at a time. We go through the recommendations. In item 1, can we agree the scheme and its schedules in Appendix 1 of this report, in particular the changes highlighted, although obviously the Schedule 1 may change depending on what you agree under the third recommendation. Are there any questions, comments? Are you happy to agree the recommendation? Okay, 2, can we note that the periodic review is progress according to previously agreed timetable in Appendix 2? Any questions, comments? Archie?
Thanks, Chair. It's just comment that I'd heard earlier on today that where community councils were able to get the information from the consultation, where on the web page can they actually get that information? Because apparently they can't get it. And if there's a way that you could advertise that, that'd be good.
Okay, you want to come in? Okay. Sorry.
Thanks, Leader. Yep, certainly all community councils were well advised that this review is taking place. Obviously, it covers a full calendar year, as well as web access. There was also hard copies available, and there was a number of forums set up in our 4 areas. But certainly, if there are community councils that feel they've got problems accessing it online, I'm quite happy to look into that, Leader.
Chair, Leader, because just come back, it's about the feedback, actually getting the feedback in whatever form it came in. It was getting other community councils to see what other community councils had said with regarding the feedback. That wasn't transparent according to the person I was talking to today.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we've captured all feedback from all sources. It's all been collated into one location, which I'll certainly write to all community councils and make sure they can see that and access it easily.
Yeah.
Just in a similar vein, Leader, in regards to the Community Council's Inquiry Service, how is that functioning at the moment? Is it functioning? Have you got an update on that?
Harry?
Thanks, Leader. Yep, there's been a couple of technical issues with the software associated with it, but just to reassure members and indeed community councils that the 4 area framework offices in each of our 4 areas are receiving any community council inquiries that come in and then allocating them to the relevant officer in the relevant service. So despite the software glitches, there shouldn't be any impact on the service that community councils receive.
Okay, if we note, sorry. Oh, sorry, Jan.
Thank you, Chair. I have received a request from Tothoro Community Council, community councillors asking if council would consider the elections for the community councils. Can it be not in the same year as the local elections? Thank you.
Alex?
Chairman, Leader, I think we'll pick that one up offline with Councillor Yen. It's certainly something we can feed into the review process. There's still time. It's an ongoing review, so we'll pick that up.
Okay, thank you. Recommendation 3. This is, we're asking for agreement on the recommendations regarding boundary and name changes in Appendix 3. Are there any questions, comments? Colin?
One of the concerns I currently have is obviously the fact that there's currently 19 community councils in the region that are effectively not functioning at the moment for a variety of reasons, and actually in some cases some of them have never actually functioned since their boundaries were actually agreed. Not for me to comment on other wards, but certainly in my own ward, one of the concerns I have is that for example, the St Michael's area hasn't had a community council for as long as I can remember, must be about 15, 16 years, and it's just not functioned. So I'm curious as to, in the recommendation, one of the requests from Lurban Community Council was to merge with St Michael's Community Council, therefore providing residents in St Michael's and Cresswell with a viable community council. The recommendation is not to agree to that merger, and I'm just curious to ask why that's the recommendation.
Harry.
Thanks, Leader. As members have previously been advised, one of the opportunities available in a periodic review is to look at boundary changes, and that can be for a variety of reasons. There has been some boundary change requests received that we've recommended are developed, and in relation to the Nisdale proposals, those raised by Lawburn Community Council, the challenge we had is that best practice dictates that you consult with all community councils that are going to be affected by that boundary change. It's a bit of a catch-22 situation, because clearly if some of those community councils, I believe there's 5 in that area, are currently dissolved, it's somewhat challenging to liaise with them. If members are so minded that we come back with an approach as to how we can overcome that, we're certainly quite happy to pick that up as part of the review. I think there was 2 issues. There was the name, and there was also the boundary, and I think they're two separate processes. But certainly, if members are so minded that we explore the mechanics and the process that we can follow to look at any boundary change, either larger or smaller, we're perfectly happy to do that. Thanks, Leader.
Colin, you want back in?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a number of the problem. I think community councils that exist are obviously able to take part in a consultation, but a community council that doesn't exist can't by definition take part in a consultation. So therefore, there hasn't been any objections to the proposal in St Michael's, but at the same time, St Michael's Community Council hasn't accepted it because it doesn't exist. So there is a real issue about how we actually communicate with people in areas where they don't have a community council. I mean, community councils perform an important role, particularly in relation, for example, to planning matters that are statutory consultee. So that particular area doesn't have a sort of a statutory consultation around planning. So I would be keen to see something come back around how do we approach reinvigorating community council in those areas, and if they can't be reinvigorated, then we do have to look at the issue of mergers. I take on board entirely the recommendation around the name change. I don't have a problem with that, because you can't change the name to something that doesn't actually cover that area, and there are no desire amongst community councils like Georgetown, etc., to be part of a wider Dumfries Town community council, and that's fine. But it's those areas that don't actually have a community council at the moment. I'm concerned we're simply saying it's business as usual, and I think we need to do a wee bit more than that. So I'll be happy to get some sort of report back or suggestions on how we take that forward. And can I just clarify, if we did do that though, further recommendations say there'll be no further boundary changes, but presumably if we're getting a report back on that would fall, because it may be at some time in the future we decide that the outcome and the need to reinvigorate community councils does require mergers, then obviously we can't make a decision until we see that report.
There is no issue with producing a further report, sir. There are, as Councillor Smith said, there are a number of community councils which have fallen by the wayside, for want of a better term. I think we need to look at the issue of reinvigorating all the community councils. Quite happy to take back the proposal on the merger or the boundary changes. On that basis, members would really say today we're not agreeing to no further boundary changes at the moment, and we are not adopting the recommendations at 12 and 13 in Appendix 3, 13 and 14 in Appendix 3. Just defer that. I would ask that members allow the review to continue, because it doesn't just affect that particular community council, it affects a number of community councils, and we would want to make sure that the review continues, but we will bring back a further report. My concern is, how do we work out what the communities want? I think we need some community engagement in those areas where there's no community council, and that's something we bring members back a report on.
John.
Thanks, Chair. As I say, Chris, the likes of St Michael's Community Council area, they've not got the community council, but they do have a TARA. They do have a TARA there, and that seems to be part of the problem. That some of the residents think the TARA acts as their community council. So that may be a way to get in touch with the TARA and see how they go. And as I say, Lawburn Community Council have no problem with, or any community council with mergers if they can't get them, but just making suppositions that other community councils wouldn't go ahead with a merger at their side of the ward, I think that's just completely out of order.
Okay, Colin, you wanted in, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder if there's any plans to address the anomaly of some community councils being in one area, but then being looked after by other areas' councillors. I'm talking in specific here about Kirkmabrek, which is Cretan, is in Wigton, but it actually comes under the Stewardship Council, or the D Ward councillors to look after their community council. I just wondered why that takes place and if there's any plans to address that.
I think that relates back to the formation of area committees from memory and the change in wards within Dumfries and Galloway. I think this was looked at previously and members were quite comfortable with the fact that someone who sat on the Stewardship Area Committee was looking after Creetown and Carsluth, and perhaps the member sitting behind you, Councillor Wiper, might like to answer that question. It is, or not directly behind you, it was an issue which this council did address, and members were all comfortable that there was a couple of anomalies, particularly on the boundary of Wigtown and Stewardship and on the boundary of Nithsdale and Stewardship, and that the members have been comfortable with those, so there is no proposal to change that. That would mean a radical overhaul of all the community council areas, because there's a knock-on effect every time you move a boundary.
George?
Yeah, just to follow on from what Colin's saying, exactly the same situation arises in Terregles, whereby, you know, the three Castle Douglas members are looking after Terregles as such, but they get all the services from Nithsdale, which leads to great difficulties within that area. And I know you yourself, Leader, have helped me out on a number of occasions in Terregles, and I thank you for that, because when I go to Terregles, I'm sometimes a bit lost. Thank you.
Okay, Willie.
Yeah, Chair, no, obviously there is an issue in throughout Dumfries and Galloway in terms of areas that are not represented, and indeed Stranraer as a whole has not had a community council for some time, and we have had one, and that there has been resignation. So we have a problem as well in Stranraer in terms of how it is represented. But it's turning to the reference made by Colin in terms of community councils who are consultees on planning issues. And I have looked through the document, and it's really to give advice, support and assistance to community councils. Earlier, you start the meeting, and most meetings, in fact, I don't know of any that don't start in asking for declarations of interest. And in community councils, there is a huge issue in terms of the community council sitting there who may have an interest that they should be declaring when they're considering not only on planning issues, but other issues. And I think the reference was made to, that I read anyway, was made to a councillor in the Highlands and Islands. And he said, that's the way we've always done it. You know, where that person sat through as a councillor and was reported to the Standards Commission. I think there needs to be greater clarification in the document to say, you know, this is where you've got to declare an interest, because they are statutory bodies and they need to be protected should there be complaints go in against them. So it's not from a criticism or to be censorious, it's to say there is an issue here in terms of declaration of interest and when community councils or councillors should be declaring this. And it's not a flippant thing, it's a real issue that I see, and it's not contained that I can see. It refers to voting, but it doesn't then outline, you know, that declaration of interest and what it actually means.
Harry, I'll let you come into this.
Thanks, Leader. Yeah, on page 151, right slap bang in the middle, you'll see under the schedules there's a code of conduct. Absolutely agree with Councillor Scobie that perhaps in the past the responsibilities that lie with community councils in relation to planning matters and other duties of care in terms of responsibility maybe haven't been as clear as what they should or could be. That has been very much tightened up in that code of conduct. We've already spoken to community councils to let them know that if they require any support or advice in terms of how to deal with potential conflicts of interest or matters relating to that, that the advice is there. So hopefully when the schedule is introduced, the code of conduct will be very clear about where the responsibilities of community councils lie.
Okay. Alex, sorry, Ian.
Thanks for letting me in, Leader. With regards to the code of conduct, community councils and so on and so forth, and who's the responsible body for that? My impression, because Willie referred to the Standards Commission, my understanding was that there's no real responsible body for that. Is it the council? Is it the Standards Commission? Where does that lie? There should, I do agree entirely, there should be a code of practice there that it should adhere to, but how is that enforced?
The councillor's quite correct, sir. There is no recourse to the Standards Commission, and there is no recourse to this council, because this council does not control community councils. It is not responsible for their actions. It is responsible for ensuring that there is a scheme there to administer them. Community councils themselves are self-regulating bodies, and it's for the community council to take action where they consider that action is required to be taken.
Patsy, I see you this time.
Well, I did have an issue with someone, a constituent that came to me who did not sit on the community council, but felt that their community council was not representing them in a fair and equitable way. Where did they go to complain? And I brought that to you, Mr. Haswell, as you know, and you said there isn't anywhere.
So is that still the case? Is there a mechanism for
Yes.
the public to have an input or voice their concerns?
The only place it could voice their concerns, Leader, would be to the community council itself. If it was the actings of an individual community council, that can be done, and I've seen that done before. But where they have a concern of the entire community council, that becomes slightly different. There is no legal mechanism for that to happen. There is no legal mechanism for this council to remove a community council or anything like that. It's dependent on the ballot box. Can I say that the new community empowerment legislation, members will have the opportunity to comment on community councils and the law relating to community councils, because they are set up under two sections of the 1973 Local Government Scotland Act. That's all the legislation that surrounds them, apart from saying that they're formal consultees in a couple of areas in planning, etc., and licensing. So members will have the opportunity of looking at that in some more detail, and that's certainly one that we bring forward when we talk to members about the community engagement legislation which is coming forward.
Willie?
Yeah, Chair, thanks for allowing me back in. I did say that I was not criticising or being censorious, but I don't know if any other member has been in situations where, you know, the community councillor will declare an interest, but then just sit on, neither remove themselves and end up voting on the issue. Now, I take the point that Alex is making at the end there, where we may have an opportunity under the Empowerment Act. But as it is just now, it's unclear, and it's more for the protection of the community councillor in the execution or the process of the business, where, you know, they may declare an interest, you know, and then still remain and continue to vote on that issue. And it's not dissimilar to the issue raised by Patsy, you know, if others have complaints, and you're complaining to the same body that has whatever it is that they have done. And it seems a very woolly situation as to that there's no governing body that can regulate that practice. And it may be that we need to pick it up under that. For their protection, I stress that, Chair.
Okay, the points are well made, and I think there is a mechanism there to feed into the community empowerment legislation. Alex, can you just kind of try and sum up in 3?
Thanks, Leader. I think in terms of the recommendations, I think members have agreed the scheme and its schedules as detailed Appendix 1. They've noted the progress in the periodic review. They are agreeing certain of the recommendations regarding boundary and name changes, but they're looking for a further report on how we can look at reinvigorating community councils in those areas where there are no community councils, and also look at the possibility of boundary changes where these have been requested or where they may be required. On that basis, recommendation 2.4 falls, Leader, if I understand the thing correctly, and I would obviously the Head of Improvement, Engagement and Community Services will take forward the decisions of this committee, the council, come back to the council early in the new year with a paper on mergers, boundaries, reinvigorating community councils, and we will then follow the remainder of the timetable, taking it through. We'll also pick up on Councillor Yen's point that she's made regarding the election process and come back and tell members about that. I hope that covers the issues that members have determined, Leader.
Okay, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Just it's page 189. It's item 1. There was a reason for the request, and just could I have that added in for the minute, please? I don't want to go over it now because it'll be lighting blue touch paper, but there was a clear reason for that, and I can provide that.
Sorry, Ian, I didn't pick you up. Oh, sorry about that.
Back through again. It's
as well as my bad eye, it's my bad ear.
You've got a bad ear as well. It's maybe me now. 189. It was column 1, and it's align the boundary for East Drigdonic, Creeka, Breaker, and there was a clear reason for it. It says in request, reason for request, no reason provided. There was a definite reason it came from the area committee, so just to add that at some point.
We'll pick that up, Chair.
Okay, I think the will be that last one.
Yeah, we'll come back with the report.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that. Right, if we can move on to the item 15, which is the minutes, which is a separate volume, which is somewhere. Yeah. You got a sheet? You got a sheet, Brian? You got a sheet?
Yeah, I've got a sheet.
I've only got a sheet.
That's a different thing. Okay, can we... This is the ad hoc review scheme subcommittee, 7th of November 2013.
I move.
Okay. The Audit and Risk Management Committee, 22nd October 2013.
Happy to move, Chair.
Second.
Okay, the next one is Employment Appeals Subcommittee, 23rd August 2013.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
The Licensing Panel, 27th August 2013.
Happy to move, Chair.
Happy second.
And the Licensing Panel, 9th of September 2013.
Happy to move, Chair.
And the 19th of September 2013.
Happy to move, Chair.
Happy to second.
26th of September 2013.
Happy to move, Chair.
Happy to second, Chair.
17th October 2013.
Move.
Seconded.
And 14th of November 2013.
Happy to move, Chair.
Seconded.
Local Review Body, 10th of July 2013.
Happy to move, Chair.
Happy to second.
The 11th of September ones, 2013.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Okay. Pension Subcommittee, 22nd August 2013.
Happy to move, Chair.
Social Work Services Committee, 24th October 2013.
Happy to move.
Second.
Okay. Thanks very much for that. I've no other public items of business. Can we move to item 17, which is to adopt the resolution to exclude? Sorry, George.
Chair, maybe before you adopt a resolution, could we maybe I'm going to ask the daft laddie question. Why are we going to adopt a resolution to exclude the public from this? Because it's been in the radio, it's been everywhere. We all know about it. I'm sure Alec will come up with a perfectly sound reason. I would just like to know what it is.
Alex?
Members will be discussing negotiations between themselves and recognised trade unions. I don't know what will come out of the thing. I know that it's been on the radio. There is nothing that we can do to prohibit someone from putting something on the radio. But what I am recommending we adopt the resolution for is to enable members to have a full discussion about this. There is legal opinion which has been obtained, and you are in a labour relations issue, and my strong recommendation is that, notwithstanding what's been on the radio, you hear the detail of the report, and you may wish to discuss further how things move forward, and certainly you wouldn't want that in the public domain until you've had the opportunity of negotiating and discussing it with the trade unions. That's why I'm recommending that you adopt the resolutions.
Are you happy with that, George? On the meeting in terms of section 54 and paragraph 11, part 1 of schedule 70 to the Local Government Scotland Act 1973.